Great sex to a man isn't just physical. It's how you make him feel. Confidence, curiosity, and emotional connection matter more than perfection. Initiate, communicate, surprise him, desire him, and after, show care. What men truly crave is a space where they feel chosen, wanted, and deeply connected, not just satisfied. When we think about what makes sex great for a man, it's easy to fall into the trap of assuming it's all about the physical. We imagine it's about looks, positions, performance. But here's the truth that most people don't talk about: great sex. The kind that keeps a man hooked emotionally and physically is psychological far more than it is physical. Yes, men are visual. Yes, they respond to touch and stimulation, but the part that makes an experience unforgettable? That happens in the mind. If it were just about physical release, every man would be completely satisfied by a one-night stand or a casual hookup. But ask most men, and they'll tell you. There are encounters that fade into the background, and then there are the ones they can't stop thinking about. The difference isn't a physical technique. It's the emotional and psychological experience wrapped around it. Men want to feel desired. It's something they won't always say out loud, but it matters deeply. When a woman looks at him like she wants him, not out of obligation or to please, but because she can't help herself, that flips a switch. It makes him feel powerful, attractive, and important. That desire feeds his confidence and it draws him toward you. That's not physical, that's psychological validation. Confidence is another major factor. When a woman is in her body, not judging herself, not holding back, but simply present and engaged, it's intoxicating. A man doesn't need you to look like a magazine cover. He needs to see that you like yourself, that you feel sexy, that you're not in your head the whole time worrying about what he's thinking. Ironically, the less you care about how you look and the more you own your energy, the sexier you become. You're not there performing, you're there experiencing, and that's unforgettable. Connection also plays a huge role. When a man feels emotionally safe, when he senses that you see him, not just as a body, not just as a provider, but as a human being with insecurities, dreams, fears, that transforms the physical act into something far deeper. Sex becomes a place where he can be vulnerable, not just dominant. He's not just taking, he's bonding. That bond creates memories, it creates attachment, and it creates a reason to come back again and again. Even subtle things like eye contact, laughter, shared vulnerability, or simply knowing that you're both tuned into each other elevate the experience. It's not about wild acrobatics or being some fantasy woman. It's about creating a moment where he feels alive, wanted, and emotionally engaged. In the end, men want more than friction. They want to feel something. When you create that space, when you shift from giving a physical experience to offering an emotional one, you stop being someone he slept with and become someone he can't forget. Confidence is one of the most attractive traits a woman can bring into the bedroom. And life in general. It's not about being loud, overly assertive, or always knowing what to do. It's a quiet, grounded self-assurance. A woman who is comfortable in her own skin, who isn't apologizing for her desires or second-guessing her worth, radiates an energy that is deeply magnetic to men. That energy says, I know who I am. I'm not here to prove anything. I'm here to enjoy this moment with you. And that's irresistible. When a woman embraces her own sensuality without shame, it opens the door for authentic, exciting intimacy. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to have the ideal body or know every trick in the book. Men aren't looking for a flawless partner. They're looking for someone who owns what she brings to the table. When you move with confidence, when you touch with intention, when you kiss like you mean it, not because you want validation, but because you want to connect, it changes everything. Insecure energy, on the other hand, can be a major intimacy killer. If you're constantly looking for reassurance, hiding your body, or overthinking every move, it creates tension that takes both of you out of the moment. Men can sense when you're not really there. And more importantly, they feel the disconnect when you don't see your own value. Ironically, the more you try to be what you think a man wants, the less sexy you appear. Why? Because you're not being you. You're being a version of yourself filtered through fear. Confidence also plays a key role in communication, especially during sex. When you're confident, you speak up, you guide him, you show him what you like. And men love this. They're not mind readers. When you're confident enough to say, I like when you do this, or slower, or that feels amazing, you're not being demanding, you're being sexy. You're taking ownership of your pleasure, and that invites him to step up and give you even more of it. A confident woman also knows how to initiate. Not all the time, not in every moment, but sometimes. And when she does, it sends a powerful message. I choose you. I want you. That expression of desire, genuine and unapologetic, is like fuel to a man's fire. He doesn't just feel wanted, he feels admired. It tells him he's not just performing, he's connecting. The best part? Confidence isn't something you have to be born with. It's built through practice, through being present with your own body, through releasing shame, through choosing to value yourself regardless of what anyone else thinks. And when you show up with that energy, men feel it instantly. It's not about being the most beautiful woman in the room. It's about being the one who knows she doesn't need to compete because she's already enough. Initiation, when it comes from a woman, is one of the most powerful tools of attraction and connection, and it's deeply underestimated. Culturally, there's often this outdated idea that men should always be the ones to initiate intimacy, to make the first move, to steer the moment. But when a woman breaks that pattern, even occasionally, it sends a surge of energy through the dynamic that can completely shift the way a man feels, not just physically, but emotionally. When a woman initiates, what a man feels first and foremost is chosen, not just accepted, not just allowed to touch or pursue, but deliberately, enthusiastically wanted. That moment, when you lean in first, when you make the first move, when you whisper something bold or touch him with intention, he doesn't just experience pleasure. He experiences validation, desire, importance. It touches something deeper than ego. It hits at his need to be seen and appreciated in a way that goes beyond words. And this doesn't mean initiation has to be some grand, dramatic gesture. It can be as subtle as you reaching for him first, pulling him closer, or sending a message that says, I've been thinking about you. It's in the glance that lingers a little longer, the confident kiss you plant on his neck, the moment you climb into his lap and make it clear that you want him. These aren't acts of desperation or control. They're acts of deep feminine power. They're expressions of freedom, desire, and playfulness, and they light a man up from the inside out. Many women hesitate to initiate because they've been conditioned to believe it's a man's job, or they fear rejection. But here's the truth. Initiation doesn't make you look needy. It makes you look confident. It tells him you're comfortable in your desire and that you're not afraid to own it. That's unbelievably sexy. Most men will tell you, one of the most unforgettable experiences is a woman who takes control once in a while. Not because she's trying to prove something, but because she simply wants to enjoy him. Initiating also helps create balance in a relationship. When intimacy becomes a one-sided pursuit, it can lead to disconnection. But when both partners feel empowered to express desire, it creates a loop of attraction that constantly renews itself. Men love to feel wanted just as much as women do, but they don't always feel safe to admit it. When you initiate, you give him that feeling without him needing to ask for it. You eliminate the guesswork and open the door to more honest, exciting intimacy. It's not about always being the one to start things. It's about breaking routine, surprising him, showing him that you're not just receptive, but actively engaged in the chemistry between you, that you're not there to be pursued, you're there to play. And in that moment, you become unforgettable. Not just someone who responds to desire, but someone who creates it. Emotional connection is the hidden ingredient that transforms physical intimacy from something routine into something extraordinary. While chemistry can spark attraction, it's emotional depth that sustains desire and makes the experience feel meaningful. For men, this connection often goes unspoken, but it runs deep. Physical pleasure is easy to find, but emotional intimacy? That's rare. and it's what makes a woman unforgettable. When a man feels emotionally connected to a woman, sex stops being just a physical act. It becomes a form of communication, a place where he feels safe to express vulnerability, passion, even love. He's no longer just focused on how the experience looks or performs. He's immersed in how it feels. He becomes more present, more generous, more open. That emotional connection acts as a bridge between bodies and hearts, making every touch, every glance, every breath shared in intimacy far more powerful. So what creates that connection? It's not complicated, but it is intentional. It starts with presence, being fully there in the moment, not distracted, not detached. When a woman brings her full attention, when she listens, when she makes space for him to be real, it lays the groundwork for trust. And trust is the foundation of emotional intimacy. A man may not say it outright, but when he senses that he can be his true self around you, messy, uncertain, emotional, that freedom becomes addictive. Men are often taught to hide emotion, to stay strong, to keep control. But in the presence of someone who allows him to let go, he can finally exhale. And that exhale often happens in the moments before or after sex, when the walls come down. If you hold space for him to open up through eye contact, a gentle touch, or just your calm, accepting energy, you become more than a partner. You become his safe place. And there's nothing sexier than that. It's also worth noting that emotional connection makes communication easier. When you feel close emotionally, you're more likely to speak openly about your desires, your boundaries, your needs. You don't worry as much about judgment. That openness leads to better physical intimacy because both of you feel more attuned and responsive to each other. You're not guessing, you're exploring together. The result is deeper satisfaction, not just physically, but emotionally. A man might not always know how to articulate this need for connection, but he feels it. He remembers the woman who looked into his eyes, who touched him with affection, who made him feel admired, respected, and understood. That kind of intimacy sticks with him, because while casual pleasure is easy to find, the feeling of being truly known and still deeply desired, that's something he won't forget. And it's what will make him keep coming back, not just for sex, but for the connection that made it extraordinary. When it comes to great sex, many people fall into the trap of thinking it's all about performance, how long it lasts, how intense it gets, or how many tricks you know. But what actually keeps things exciting and memorable over time isn't performance, it's variety. Variety sparks curiosity, keeps both people present, and makes every moment feel fresh, not rehearsed. It's not about doing more, it's about doing different and being playful while you're at it. Men aren't looking for a partner who performs like they're in an adult film. In fact, too much focus on performance can make intimacy feel mechanical. When someone is so focused on doing it right, they're no longer in the moment. They're trying to impress rather than connect. And that can be a total mood killer. On the other hand, when you bring variety, small changes, new energy, lightness, it creates surprise. And surprise is incredibly sexy. Variety can show up in the simplest ways. It could be trying a different room, a new time of day, a spontaneous kiss that leads somewhere, whispering something unexpected, a change in rhythm or pace. It doesn't require a wild imagination or an elaborate plan. It just requires you to be present enough to want to switch things up and explore. That mindset, curiosity over choreography, is what keeps sex from feeling like a routine. What men crave, often more than anything, is to feel like each experience with you is its own unique moment. Like you're both discovering something new together, rather than repeating what worked last time. That sense of newness doesn't come from complexity. It comes from playfulness. When you laugh in bed, when you experiment without pressure, when you try something just because you're both in the mood to be adventurous, it opens a new layer of connection. Also, variety allows space for emotion and depth. Sometimes great sex is slow, intimate, and deeply connected. Other times it's wild, urgent, and playful, Switching between these modes, rather than always aiming for one perfect version, allows both of you to express different sides of yourselves. It keeps desire alive because it never gets predictable. Predictability kills passion, but variety breathes new life into it. And here's the best part. Variety is not about being someone you're not. It's about bringing more of who you are into the experience. Letting different moods, ideas, and fantasies have space to play out. It's about not boxing sex into one version of what it's supposed to be. Men don't want a repeat of last time. They want to feel like this time is just for them, just with you, in the energy you're both feeling right now. So, if you ever feel pressure to perform, let it go. Instead, ask, how can we make this moment different? Lighter, deeper, slower, bolder? That question alone will take you farther than any performance ever could. Communication is one of the most underrated forms of foreplay. Too often, people assume that talking about sex, what they like, what they don't, what they want, kills the mood. They think it breaks the spell or makes things too clinical. But the opposite is true. For a man, a woman who communicates with clarity, confidence, and curiosity is incredibly attractive. It shows presence, maturity, and a willingness to create something real, not just go through the motions. Most men are not mind readers. They want to please you. They want to know what works and what doesn't. But they're often operating in the dark, relying on guesses and assumptions. When you give him clear signals through words, sounds, or even body language, it removes the pressure to get everything right on his own. And that makes him relax. When a man can stop guessing, he can start connecting. Clear communication isn't about giving instructions like a coach. It's about co-creating an experience. It's saying things like, that feels amazing, or a little slower, or right there. These aren't interruptions, they're invitations. They pull him in, they build intimacy, and they help both of you stay tuned into the moment. When you speak up, it tells him you're engaged, you're not performing, you're participating. That's a massive turn on. It also creates emotional safety. When you're comfortable communicating in bed, it signals that you're emotionally secure, that you trust him enough to be vulnerable. And when that trust exists, it deepens the connection. Men want to feel like they're not just providing pleasure, but also receiving real-time feedback. They don't want to guess if you're enjoying yourself. They want to know. And nothing confirms that like words spoken from a place of honesty and presence. Communication can also be incredibly sexy when it comes to expressing desire. Saying what you want, whether with confidence or even a bit of shyness, lets him know that you're into him, that you're not just there for his benefit, but that you want this too. That kind of verbal affirmation adds emotional weight to the physical experience. It shifts the dynamic from one-sided to mutual exploration. And mutual desire, that's magnetic. Even outside the bedroom, talking openly about intimacy can be deeply bonding. It shows a willingness to grow together, to make things better, more exciting, more satisfying for both of you. It keeps the relationship evolving. Sex that stays silent quickly becomes stale, but sex that's fueled by open dialogue stays alive. And it's not just about what's said, it's how it's said. Communication can be soft, breathy, playful, even teasing. It can be moaned instead of spoken, whispered instead of declared. It doesn't have to kill the mood, it is the mood. When you understand that communication is part of the seduction, part of the intimacy, you stop seeing it as a break in the moment and start seeing it as one of the most powerful tools you have to deepen desire. Aftercare is one of the most overlooked elements of intimacy, yet it plays a critical role in deepening connection, building trust, and keeping the emotional bond between two people alive. It's easy to focus on the build-up, the flirting, the tension, the act itself, but what happens after matters just as much, if not more. For men, as much as for women, aftercare is a silent signal. It says, "This wasn't just physical, I'm still here, I care." Many people assume that once the physical part is over, the experience is complete. But for most men, there's a quiet emotional space that opens up immediately after intimacy. It's vulnerable. It's unguarded. It's a moment where he's not performing, not pursuing, just being. And what happens in that moment can either pull you closer or create a silent distance. Aftercare is what bridges the gap between sex and connection. It turns a physical experience into an emotional one. What does aftercare look like? It doesn't have to be complicated. It can be as simple as laying together, touching, holding hands, kissing slowly, or sharing a quiet conversation. It can be physical closeness or emotional check-ins. How do you feel? Or was that good for you? It's not about analyzing or overthinking. It's about letting your presence say, I'm still with you. That feeling of being seen and held afterward is what makes the whole experience feel safe and meaningful. Men often don't talk about needing aftercare because they're not taught to. They're expected to be tough, detached, or ready to move on right away. But beneath that surface, most men crave tenderness just like anyone else. They want to feel wanted beyond the act. They want to feel like their emotional side is acknowledged, even if they don't verbalize it. When a woman stays present with him after sex, when she holds him, strokes his hair, looks into his eyes, or simply lies quietly beside him, it creates a powerful sense of connection that words alone can't replicate. Aftercare also builds anticipation for next time. When a man feels good after, he associates sex with something positive, not just in a physical sense, but in an emotional one. He doesn't just remember the act, he remembers how he felt afterward. That comfort, that affection, that closeness, it lingers. It becomes part of what he looks forward to, what he associates with you, and what deepens his attraction. It also creates a sense of emotional safety over time. The more consistent the aftercare, the more trust is built. It sends the message that sex isn't transactional, it's relational, that you care not just about what happens in the heat of the moment, but how he feels once that heat fades. And that kind of care isn't just rare, it's unforgettable. Because while physical chemistry can be found in many places, emotional care after intimacy, that's what makes someone want to stay. For many women, the idea of being desired is deeply ingrained in the way they experience intimacy. We often think of men as the ones who want to pursue, to chase, and to take the lead. But the truth is, men want to feel desired too. It's not just about being admired from a distance, but about feeling wanted, chosen, and valued in a way that transcends the physical. When a woman actively shows desire, it's incredibly powerful. It's a validation of his worth, not just as a partner, but as a man. Men, just like women, want to feel that they're wanted for who they are, not just what they can offer in terms of performance. They want to know that their presence excites you, that their touch is something you crave, that their attention holds your focus. When you show genuine desire for him, it makes him feel alive. It gives him a sense of being seen, not just as a provider or protector, but as someone who is fundamentally wanted. This desire is about more than physical attraction. Sure, the way he looks might catch your attention, but it's how you make him feel that sustains desire. Men are often expected to take the lead, to be the ones to initiate and express interest. But the beauty of a woman expressing her own desire is that it flips the script. It shifts the energy in the room. It makes him feel special, important, and like he's the one being sought after. That role reversal, the moment when he's the one being desired, is an incredibly powerful dynamic that deepens the connection. The key is not just showing desire through words or actions, but doing so with intention. It's in the way you look at him, the way you touch him, and the way you communicate your attraction. A simple look, a playful comment, or a subtle touch can communicate volumes. Men want to feel desired, not just when they're at their most confident or capable, but when they're vulnerable, when they're not performing at their peak. It's the moments when he's allowed to be human that he truly feels valued. When a woman takes the time to show that she wants him, whether it's through initiating touch, giving him an unexpected compliment, or expressing genuine attraction, it gives him confidence. It boosts his sense of self-worth, and he becomes more invested in you, not just as a partner, but as a person. It opens up the space for him to feel comfortable expressing his own desires and needs, creating a balanced dynamic where both of you are able to explore intimacy openly and freely. At the end of the day, Men want to feel like they are not just performing or fulfilling a role, they want to feel that they are desired for who they are. When you communicate that desire, it's not just about creating physical connection, it's about creating an emotional one that reinforces your bond and ensures that both of you feel valued, seen, and wanted. This is what makes a relationship dynamic rich, exciting, and lasting. In the end, the key to great intimacy lies not just in physical connection, but in the emotional and psychological dynamics that fuel it. From showing confidence in your own desires to initiating intimacy, from cultivating an emotional bond that enhances physical connection to embracing the power of communication. Each element plays a vital role in creating a relationship that thrives on genuine connection and mutual respect. Men, just like women, crave to feel wanted, desired, and understood, not just for what they can provide, but for who they are. When both partners actively invest in one another, when they move beyond the surface level and into deeper, more vulnerable territories, intimacy becomes more than just an act. It becomes an ongoing conversation that strengthens the bond and keeps the fire alive. By embracing these principles, we create relationships that are not only fulfilling in the moment, but also enduring over time.